Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Groyper Report. Tonight, we have some groundbreaking news to share with you.
Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what? Your body, my choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. Giga Chat Central, yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men on Earth. AtlasThugged and Josh Van Der Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Groyper Report. And I'm your host, AtlasThugged, and I'm joined by our co-host,
Joshua Van Der Nord.
And we are the one network not afraid to say Christ is King. And I'm going to let you guys know now, I am under the weather. I think I have the flu. I am trying to survive as best I can. I feel like low energy Jeb right now. I'm pushing along, or we're just toting along the little engine that could. So for the most part today, Josh is going to be taking the lead for today. So we're going to be looking at the clips that Josh wants to look at. But before we get too further in, how are we doing?
As you should.
And the Jew has taken over. I'm sorry, guys. He bought me out. It was too good of an offer.
Inevitable.
But for this week was another explosive week, another kind of insane week in the life of Nicholas J. Fuentes, and more controversy. But I think maybe the best clip out of this week that I think we got was Nick talking about wanting to date an OnlyFans whore. That to me was like the one that I was laughing at the most. But I'll let you take the lead, man. Where do you want to go?
Okay, so I'm actually glad you brought that up because, maybe unbeknownst to the viewers, you and I, we meet in the green room like an hour before the show and just kind of chat, kind of game plan the show a little bit. And I totally forgot to bring that up because I wanted to talk about that because to me, I love it. There's something just so delicious about seeing people fall for like 1 out of 10 rage bait. You know what I mean? Seeing all the like the wholesome Chungus Christian accounts being like, what? He wants to date an OnlyFans girl. This is your Christian guy. This is the Brylan Hollyhans. This is your Christian leader.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, whores are hot.
Well, it's kind of funny because it's like just talking about just like general things that the average guy would like talk about. It makes me think of like my college days when I was hanging out with like, a rambunctious group of guys, and we would have conversations like that, right? Where it'd be similar to like the Family Guy thing, Would you rather have, a life-threatening surgery performed on you by a woman, or would you rather get a massage from a gay man? These are like, nobody wants either, but you're like, you're kind of contemplating, like, if you were forced to have to pick these things, like, what would you do? And it's funny because the OnlyFans whore thing, I think, there's a point to that, right? And you see these conversations all the time. There was a recent porn star who got married to a guy, and I cannot remember what her name was, and I won't even say it because I don't want to give her any more popularity. But that is kind of the question, right? You look in the comments there, a lot of guys, most guys are saying like, wow, what an idiot, what a trash, like, that sucks for him, used product. It's the whole Logan Paul meme, right? It's the guy with the flowers. He's at the back of the line. But then you have other comments there where it's like, no. He gets a guaranteed freak for life. You guys don't understand. And I guess if you were to reduce your marriage down to like the sexual element of it, I would imagine, hey, maybe there's an argument there. But to me, there's a lot more to marriage than just the sexual element of it. But again, it's just the fact that Nick entertains these ideas is enough for people to start crashing out. And that's to me is like that's the point where we're at. You can't disagree. If you disagree, you're either a grifter, a fad, or you're a Jew. And like that's like a very unhealthy way to be. We need to be able to be in an arena where we can actually healthily disagree. You know what I mean? So that kind of I think is a broad way to describe what happened this week. But back to you. What clip? Where do you want to start? What are the pieces you want to start with for this week?
Where are we gonna? Let's start with. I guess we'll go back to the beginning. I know that
That's funny.
basically over the weekend there was all of the Andrew Tate debacle. Him being in Miami with Clavicular and Sneeko and the whole gang. But then, of course, it culminated in him going to Timcast, which is so funny because I remember. This is actually the first time I saw your channel, Atlas, was you were covering the beef between Timcast IRL and Nick Fuentes. Now, and actually, it was a couple of months ago during the generational run, he was supposed to go on with them and canceled, and I think they canceled. I can't quite remember who did what and when and where and why, but it all culminated with him going back, and it got completely shadowed by NHH.
Yeah.
I don't want to get us in trouble, but by NHH.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, you know what? Let's go to Monday, and that's just an aside to talk about. I thought that was funny, but his podcast with Tim. Let's do take two. Would you take the meeting with Netanyahu?
I thought this was the best moment from the day, but here it is. Yeah.
If you were invited to a private meeting at the White House with Netanyahu, would you take it?
No.
You wouldn't do it?
I like being alive,
I'd do it. Well, I did.
I want to have him on the show. We gotta get BB
I
over
would
here.
watch that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, dude.
You gotta be on that one.
I want to hang with B. Because we got to talk
So
about
who would say? I can't believe people would say no to that. You wouldn't. You wouldn't go?
No way. I really have nothing to say to him. I mean, I
What
see him
do
as
you mean?
as like a civilizational enemy of America, basically.
Wouldn't you want to say that to him?
No, I say it on my show, but no, I don't.
how do we? He's seen clips. He's seen clips.
It was.
I was literally thinking when I saw this clip originally. Did you ever see that movie with Seth Rogen? I don't blame you if you haven't, but the one where they try to kill Kim Jong-un. Was it The Interview?
Oh my gosh, dude, that might be the only Rogan movie I like, to be honest with you. Yeah, that has
I'm a fan of
Franco
Green
brothers.
Hornet. Green Hornet is a banger. But yeah, I was thinking he had like the poison Band-Aid thing, and he's supposed to like shake his hand. Benjamin Netanyahu would have like nanobot breath to like destroy Nick Fuentes or something like that.
Yeah.
They probably, honestly, whoever's second in command over there would probably put a bomb in Netanyahu's belt or something just to like get them all. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, again, it'd be a pager or something like that, right? It makes me think of the Dune series where it's I can't remember the name of the actor, but he bites down on that pill and he breathes the air into like that one guy's face. Like that would probably be what it would be.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
kind of breathalyzer.
He bites the poison pill and freezes it into their face.
We're all getting sick.
We're both a mess, it seems like. I was gonna say sick boy deep voice over here and coffee Jew.
Well, it's funny because I think I got it from Zeb, dude. I think Zeb literally gave it to me through the screen. How that happens, I have no idea. Zeb was sick yesterday. Now I'm sitting here dying. Not fun.
Maybe there's something to these chemtrails. Maybe they are pouring noxious gas on all.
Right. Well, this is
good.
The Temple collab, like nobody was expecting, right? And I think he had alluded to it over the weekend, saying he had said something to the effect of like, I'll be back on Monday. Nope. Hold on. Collab's coming out on Monday. I'm back on Tuesday. So that's kind of like all we knew. I don't think anybody expected it to be Tim until Tim posted the schedule like the day of, which then had Nick Fuentes' face on the schedule for the roster of the week. I think even Amy Dangerfield went on Timcast directly after, right after. And it's funny because it ends the week on Friday with Wrestling KD. It's like it goes back to, kosher kind of Christianity. But the funny moments with this was all the reactions from most people where they're like, one of the top comments in my video was, you should have renamed the title of the video from the best moments of Nick on Tim to all the times Nick got to speak, because it kind of defined like the interview or the podcast, which was Nick didn't speak for a good portion of like, I think like the first 50 minutes. It was like, you didn't even know he was there. And then they started roping him back into the conversation. But I thought it was pretty good. The only overall thing I guess I would say is that this is indicative of how far the conversation's moved, to where you used to have a period of time where Timcast IRL, after I think he's not gotten as big as I expected he would be, but there's a younger guy who went on Timcast, was very anti-Israel. And basically after that kid, Timcast kind of boxed it off, saying like, we're not even going to have these kind of conversations anymore. Like, didn't want to have these kind of people on. But then he has Nick Fuentes on. And now they're having full-blown JQ discussions on Timcast IRL. And like that shows you like how it's taken steps in the direction towards that, especially for somebody who used to listen to Timcast, 4 years ago. It is a huge change of pace for them. And probably partially because of all the financial elements from Temple having to go through things. Maybe he's just kind of like recalculating what he wants to make money off of or what he wants the show to be about. Because I wasn't expecting to see that backdrop when I clicked on the episode. I've not been following Timcast, but clearly that's a new studio. And to me, it looks like they're downsizing. So it could be an element of Timcast taking a financial hit.
I thought that too, because I was like, did they go somewhere else? Because this looks like they're in someone's office. You know what I mean?
From that interview, what I gathered was that Timcast operations is now in Florida, and now they operate out of Florida.
Which I knew they were in like the part of West Virginia that borders Maryland, but then Nick confirmed in one of his other shows that he did. Geez, excuse me. He didn't even know that they moved down to Florida. That he had to get clarification on that.
Yeah. Marcus Moto says that they were at Rumble Studios in Florida. So I don't know if it's like actually like Tim's studio, or if they what you had said they're renting it out. They were using it there as well.
Something that came up on that show that, of course, with everything going on, it just kind of got swept under the rug. But I thought it was very interesting. Is Tim asked Nick? He goes, "So you think that America can only be America with white people?" And he goes, "Well, yes, I don't think people are interchangeable." And then Tim, he almost plays like boomer advocate, where he's like, "Well, what if it were all Indians, but the Indians were Christian conservative people that admired the founders and the Constitution? Would it still be America?" And to me, and we talk about this all the time, but like to me, this just shows like where a lot of these people are at. Is it's like you're not living in the real world. And this is not one of those like let's entertain the hypotheticals, but you're basically saying, okay, so what if Indians were white?
Right.
If Indians were white, then yes, it could still be America, but they aren't.
Yeah.
And that is the point. It's an inane hypothetical. So I thought,
right.
Which honestly, I don't know if Tim was just, because I don't watch Tim too much, but I don't know if he was doing that like genuinely playing devil's advocate, or if he was kind of giving Nick the layup. But I thought, because that was a great moment, I thought, where basically Nick, he's able to explain these thoughts that are so quickly given the racist label in a way that is palatable to like a normal person.
Yeah, he's definitely great at like breaking things down and like articulating them back to get the ideas to convey across to as many people as possible. But the bigger point there is like, what was the point of that? Because if it wasn't Tim Pool kind of giving a layup to Nick Fuentes, which I don't think he would, right? Timcast has notoriously avoided the racial issues. He's notoriously been, very against anything that goes down the lines of identity politics. But very specifically, though, you pointed out just how pointless and rather just like inane. Like it just the hypothetical means nothing. Like it's not even in practice could this even thing happen, because it removes the point of what Nick's point is, which is it's not actually the color of their skin. It's the way they act. It's the content of their character. It's their culture. It's the things that come with it. It's their nature. And those are the elements that people seem to like act are interchangeable. And that's the element. I think that's the part that he goes in there, which is like, we're not interchangeable peoples. We never will be. And it's not just because they have a different color skin than us. It's because not only were they nurtured in a culture that's entirely different than us, from their family into the outside social reinforcement, but also that their nature is different from us. And we know that. We know our nature is different. Every people's. Just when you see our skin's different from somebody else, you know they have a different genetic sequencing that's coding for that to be present in them and not in you. You know, the answer's already out there. So if it wasn't a kind of layup to Nick Fuentes, I think that just shows you, I mean, how dumb Tim is, if he still holds to these beliefs, or is he kind of like trying to push something? Because to me, like, that's the only way he was trying to give Nick a layup. And if he was giving a Nick a layup, what does that say about the interior motives of Timcast? What is his presence now? Because that seems to speak to a 180 from his typical political positioning. If he was trying to give Nick a good moment about white identity, what does that say about Tim Pool? Does that make sense? You see, like, I guess I'm kind of confused where Tim Pool's at with that.
Absolutely. And that's the thing where, I mean, Zeb says that Tim Pool just is a communist, you know, he's basically like fully in on the grift. I buy that, you know, I don't know it, but to me that's valid. So this sort of like, you know, it does one of two things. It gets him past the goal line of like us, where Pool's closed. That's funny. But it gets him past the like race realist goal line, because he's asking the question in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way, but also like, if the person who's like a boomer, who's like this non-race realist, he doesn't like Nick's answer, but he can like Tim Pool's question, you know what I mean? So again, it's just Tim Pool covering his own ass, which,
yeah,
you know, whatever.
What's the word for that? Reasonable doubt. You know,
yes,
like laying it out there. It's like now people have to kind of guess what the motivation of it was.
Yes, where it's so in the middle that anyone could read into it whatever they want.
Right. And I think that Monday was when the PBD episode aired. Am I correct on that? Or was
With
it
Andrew
Tuesday?
Tate, I believe it was Monday.
I'm pretty sure. So that's what started again the Club Accost, which is
right
largely what a lot of this is going to be in response to as we go through it. But is that it? It's probably basically it for Monday, I would say. I guess the only other thing I would add there would be the last time that Nick was on, you know, Timcast IRL was the infamous moment of the Ye walkout, which resulted in Nick talking for like maybe 5 minutes at the time. It was a very poor episode. They basically turned around and just talked about the walkout the rest of it. But very different tone and nature. You know, that time Nick showed up in a sweatshirt with, you know, the AirPods on with Ye. This time he's in full get up. He's got the beard going, right? He's locking in, right? 2026. But I guess moving on to
year of
Tuesday.
the lock-in.
Yeah, the year of the lock-in. Moving on to Tuesday,
yeah,
though.
So Tuesday he's back in full swing of America First. So I say you know, I know we're doing the Groyper report, but I think he gives the best summation of what happened on the prior Sunday or Saturday, whenever the Club Accost was.
Yep.
So go to clip number 4. Nick Fuentes talks about the legendary Saturday night.
Got it. Here we go.
That was a legendary night. No regrets. I'd do it again. You know, if Myron didn't put the song on, if Sneeko didn't put the song on, whoever put it on, I would have put it on. If I could go in a time machine, if I was like Charlie Kirk, if I was endowed with his powers and I was a time traveler and I could see the future and change outcomes in the space-time continuum, I would do it again. Fuck it. I would do it again. I would put the song on all over again. I put it on twice. I put it on 3 times. And I would have sang all the words, because that's just one legendary night. All the realest niggas in the space. Who wouldn't? The Tates, Fresh and Fit, Sneeko, Clav, me. Balling out in the club, bottle service, Red Bull. Heil Hitler by Ye, blasting in the club, people throwing Romans. Things that AI could never recreate. This is an image that AI could never recreate. One legendary night. It might have cost people millions of dollars. It might have caused some problems. We live for nights like that. People are talking. Let them talk. We had fun. I had fun at my first night in the club. First and last night. This is what happens. Still a nigga. Isn't that crazy, though? That just goes to show it. This follows me everywhere I go. People say, hey, man, just be normal. Hey, man, just do a normal thing. I go to the club one time. One time. I posted a green text about it. I'm like, looking down, you know. My friends are egging me on. They want to take me to the club. They drag me out. I say, all right, I'll go to the club. Song comes on. It's my favorite song by my friend, Ye. I start to enjoy myself a little. Wake up the next day, we get condemned by the mayor of the city for going too hard. But you know what? I would not prefer it any other way. You're not a real nigga if you don't go to the club and the mayor of the city puts out a statement. Thank you for doing your part, Jewish bitch. Thank you for doing your part. We appreciate it. Thank you for letting us aura farm. We cannot turn up in the club without the mayor of the city condemning us. The club bans us. The ADL is mad. It's in the New York Times. Headline, Nick Fuentes goes to the club for the first time. So thank you for letting us aura farm. That's what happens when we have too much fun. That's what happens when we turn up. Sorry for party rocking. Sorry for going too hard for one night. So I thought it was great.
That was
Let's go, dude.
That was a solid. I think that was like in your opinion, yeah, one of the best responses. I liked Clavs the most because it was a little bit shorter than that. And I think I even said this on the circuit. But he records like a 20-second video, and he essentially says, "Nope, I would do it again." And how dare you do something? He's like, I would be banned from every club in America if it meant I could exercise my ability to, I think he says, to do content and have free speech. Which is the point. I think that's the same leg that Sneeko is standing on, which is like, it's literally just a song. And the reaction, largely, there's a bunch of different ways you could look at it, but I think the easiest one is kind of what I've been saying here. You know, they got, it's like shoot 'em up, you know, these black people, these black women, stupid bitch, slap a bitch, you know, fuck a hoe, get that whore. and then, you know, Heil Hitler plays and the whole world stops. Everyone all of a sudden knows what a bad word is. Whoa, everyone's like immediately like panicking, sweat starts coming down. You know, you have the Jewish pimp is like slamming the big red button. He's like, put on Smack That Bitch by Akon, get it back to regular music. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like everything before and after that song is glorifying degeneracy, drugs, you know, gang violence, you know, women being whores. But it's like, it's Hitler is like this big villain, and it's like this culture shock. And I'll add to that by saying, obviously we get Adam Sosnick's kind of bitch fit that happens for about a 50-minute period on PBD with Andrew Tate. And it's during this bitch fit that he's opining over and over and over again about how Andrew Tate should have known better. Andrew Tate's a leader, yada, yada. And I'll save the PBD's point till later. But at the very end of it all, after Adam Sosnick's laying out, you know, this is what you should be as a man. Like this, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be around these people and not these people. You should have known better. At the very end, he goes, did Nick at least lose his virginity? As if like that would have made the night better. Like that would have been at least a good thing to get out of the night. And it's in that sense that you go, we don't like, that's the tell that this person is not the same values as you, right? This individual is a Jew. He worships Jewish values. It'd be the same thing as if like I was in some random place and an Indian starts screaming at me because I didn't like pet the cow and I didn't kiss its hoof. Like, I'm sorry. I don't believe in that. I'm not going to bow to your cow. And so you hear that and it's like at the very end of it, the whole thing falls on its face because he's like, it's a clear non-Christian value he's pushing. You sit there and you go like, so why would I listen to anything you have to say? You're clearly not a Christian. So why would I take any moral advice from you at all? What does it mean to me? It would be no different than an Indian screaming, I disrespected Shiva. What the hell is a Shiva? You know, we don't do that here, right? And so that was kind of like my overall take on that.
Well, and to go off of that point about Adam Sosnick, so what he's doing is Adam Sosnick has just barely enough self-awareness to say in his own mind, okay, it's clear that like I'm pressed about this, so I'm gonna wrap up my little spiel with a joke at Nick Fuentes' expense, because really that's what it was. He was saying that to basically poke fun and bring awareness to the fact that Nick is a 28-year-old virgin. But again, it goes to the difference in values. But on top of that, and I think Nick sums this up better throughout the week, is, dude, you're 50 and your whole thing is like, I'm a party rocker, dude. I just shoot hoops at work and I'm having fun. I'm hanging out with 20-year-old whores. You know what I mean? I'm like the coolest cat in the building. And it's like Adam Sosnick is a slightly cooler version of Dave Portnoy. I wouldn't. Well, like Adam Sosnick is what Dave Portnoy wishes he was. I mean, because at least Adam Sosnick is not ugly. You know what I mean?
Well,
but like
it's deeper than that, though, right? It's not.
But
even
it is these like 50-year-old guys that want to be, that like pretend to be 20.
Right. Well, when I was listening to this earlier, it's like it's actually a bit deeper than that. Adam Sosnick, I guess, like behind the scenes, like in private, Nick was talking about the last time he was there when he was on PBD. Adam Sosnick was coming up to him and being like, "Yeah, man, we gotta start talking about these these racial things because these people are committing these crimes, and like how women, we need to repeal the 19th, yada yada." Like he's saying all these things to Nick in private that he's like aligned with him, but it's this one thing that causes, and it's obvious because it's their religion, they worship this shit. And it's like, it's so very telling in the hypocrisy there. And a lot of it is an act. To this question, though, from J.R. Williams, it says, Atlas, do you think these guys believe, or are they just espousing edgy shit for clicks? Tate completely capitulating would seem to demonstrate that it's all an act. Well, the thing is like, Tate was always in it for the clicks. He's always been in it for the money. I think he tells you that, right? Like, he makes fun of people because they're broke. That's always been his motive of operation. And so when people are kind of surprised now, is like, you seriously surprised a guy who's like end all be all was like Bugattis and women like fell like when he was under pressure? It's like, of course not. Like the guy who's convicted like with the word of God is going to be the guy who's not going to back down because he actually believes in it. He has conviction. To Andrew Tate, I feel like it's for him, he's feeling the pressure from somewhere, obviously, and I think it's legally, especially with the way that we're talking about the fact that they're under the barrel of the gun in multiple different regions. And just like we saw when he landed in Florida, the moment they step foot there, all of a sudden a woman comes out of nowhere and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this guy abused me. And now they're pursuing charges for him. And so for them, I get Nick's defense of it. But Andrew Tate was always in it for like, for the money, starting in it on the cam girls. He never had a good value set to him. And he always should have just been looked at that as well. And so when people were touting Andrew Tate for the past couple of years, it wasn't as a full comprehensive, this is the exact role model from point A to point B, you should be this. It was to make the point about masculinity. And when it's in a drought, you're going to get forms of masculinity that you don't want. That's because of all the control mechanisms that's preventing true masculinity from being allowed in the hemisphere. And so what you get are these poor versions of it, which is like what I would say Andrew Tate in the red pill manosphere is. But for the rest of them, like, no, I think Nick, surely not. I think Nick has a different kind of mechanism, I guess you would say. I think there's two different ones. I think largely he just says things because like he just wants to say his thoughts out loud. And I think for a lot of people, they don't realize how much they are self-censoring themselves before the words actually leave their mouth. The second thing I would say, I think that recently he's been doing a bit of refining, just like how Lucas Gage had mentioned. I think a lot of people in this new form audience that have fallen in with the multi-generational run are not people who are going to actually truly be fans of Nick. And I think they only joined because they maybe liked one thing that he said about women, or they liked one thing that he said about Israel. And that's not the full, robust nature of Nick. Nick is a Christian nationalist, and more so a Catholic nationalist. And so these things aren't going to be able to sustain themselves. And I think that's why he's starting right now being very provocative. I wouldn't even say provocative, just being more of himself, being less conciliatory. And part of that, I think, is to start getting some of these people who are kind of always screaming in his replies and comments to just leave and go back to normal to where he was at. That's the element that I would pick up on. Myron and Fresh, I'd go back and forth on Myron. Fresh is entirely a, what'd you call it, grifter, fake. He's just in it for clicks. But that'd be my opinion just off the rip on all this, guys. I don't know if you wanted to answer the question, Josh.
No. You absolutely raise a good point, which and in the question as well. The thing about Tate and Myron and Sneeko is they are not Muslim in an actual sense. What it is Tate worships Tate, Sneeko worships Sneeko, and Myron worships Myron. They basically, as many people are, this sort of like this new atheism craze that was in the early 2000s where people were turning away from God, that has gone away. Atheism is gay again, and now people of all sorts are having this sort of religious and spiritual reawakening. But like they're realizing that like God is essentially becoming cool again, but the Christian God does not jive with Andrew Tate, cam girl like pimp extraordinaire. He's a hedonist. He believes in having multiple wives, and so he just picked Islam because it aligns most with what he already believed, which is why I think, and I know we'll get into it here in a second, but Nick defends Andrew Tate. And I get why, but to me, that is kind of the point, is it's like Andrew Tate is chickening out. He is like going real hard on the defense, and he has good reasons to do so. But the point is like when we're talking about it from the Muslim point of view, he has no religious conviction. It is like a color of it's like a style of an outfit he's wearing. You know what I mean? As soon as it is no longer stylish, he will shed it, because it's just not down with what Tate wants anymore.
Right. And I guess I would add to that by saying with Andrew Tate, the way that he handled it, I mean, Nick even said this too, like, he said that he gets the way that Tate handled it, but he also said, he didn't love the way he handled it. And the way that Tate's been handling himself now, I've not seen their most recent podcast, and that might be news to most people here, but Tate was on another podcast dropped earlier today with Bradley Martin on Raw Talk. I've not seen anything from that one, but largely from PBD and then on the Jack Neal podcast as well, he's continually driving the nail down on Sneeko. And so now that's kind of putting a lot into a lot of people's minds, Zeb Boykin included, that there may be an element of this, that there's a setup, that it was to get some of these other red pill adventures, like, to in a position to apologize or demean their audience or to add to this divisiveness. But that is kind of like where the downstream consequences are going to be felt, which is the fact that they all turned on Sneeko immediately. But in 24 hours, we all have all the video footage showing that it wasn't Sneeko who played the song. It wasn't even close to Sneeko playing the song. It was a combination of Fresh and Myron, coordinating and putting the song on. And so like it kind of blows a hole into the narrative. However, how important are these things in the long run? I think it will be more so how divided will these guys be long term. Like we'll see how the dust settles in the near term, but I think we'll look back on this moment if, say, in a year these guys are still at odds with each other, and then we'll say maybe there was an element that they wanted to set them at odds, more so in the vein of like Project Esther. But more back to Tuesday though.
That's a good point.
Where's the next clip? Where are we going to next?
Okay, so I think that I've been keeping up with your show throughout the week, the circuit and everything. The Club of Cost has been talked to death. We all know about the mayor. We all know about the ADL. We all know about that stuff. So I think we can move on, which is actually why this is one of the things I admire about Nick and America First, the show, is he only dedicated like one day to that topic, even though he probably would have gotten a ton of clicks. Then he transitioned back into the news. And so get kind of in that same vein, I think some of the things he talked about this week are very important. And this, so Trump, and we've talked about this before, Atlas, even on the Groyper report, Trump has betrayed us and let us down over and over and over. And to me, the most overt gut punch to me personally was when I think it was on with Laura Ingraham, and she was like, well, we have talented people here in America. And he was like, no, we don't. That was like one of the biggest gut punches ever. And even still, the rhetoric about Greenland, you know, what he did in Venezuela, hell yeah, let's go. And taking over Greenland, let's do it. But inevitably, what always happens? Trump always chickens out. So if you go to Wednesday, pull clip number 1.
Wednesday, clip number 1.
Yes.
Taco. Got it.
Dude, every single time, Trump always chickens out. That's the only thing you can count on this guy to do. Every time you get excited for something, every time you think it's going to be good, chickens out. Our featured story is about the meeting in Davos, Switzerland today, the World Economic Forum. Trump attended, gave a speech. He met with the Secretary General of NATO, and they discussed this Greenland issue. And we will talk about some of the back and forth. As you know, Trump threatened to impose a 25% tariff on all goods from a select number of European countries, which would hit in June. In retaliation, the European Union has suspended the implementation of a 2025 trade agreement with the United States. Well, after negotiations today, Trump says there is a framework deal for Greenland. Here's what we know about it. The red line for Denmark and for the rest of the European Union, for the European NATO countries, is that the United States can never own Greenland. That's their red line. We're never going to get it. We're never going to have it. So what does the deal look like? Well, they say it will mirror a security agreement that the United Kingdom has with Cyprus, where parts of Greenland will be sovereign U.S. territory, and we will have veto power over whether China and Russia invest in their minerals and other projects in Greenland. We don't actually get it. We don't actually have it. So what the fuck are we doing? We'll talk about it, and we'll get into some of the geopolitics. Honestly, it seems that Trump just messed this one up. Too aggressive, galvanized Europe and Greenland against the acquisition, basically made it impossible. And now we have to settle for something that we sort of already had. It's really just codifying the existing arrangement where we have almost total freedom to operate inside Greenland, and we can apply pressure to prevent them from making agreements with other countries. Just that now it's going to be written. Okay, so what?
And it's not just the Greenland element. It's also, I think, as we found out later in the week, I can't remember the exact wording of Donald Trump, but he basically said that the killing of Renee Nicole Good was like not good. I think is actually the way that he said it. And
he said it was a tragedy.
Yeah, tragedy. And I think he followed it up by saying ICE will make mistakes sometimes. So I think therein he's throwing ICE under the bus by saying that it was a mistake and that she shouldn't have been killed, therefore throwing his own people under the bus. And you know, I've been sick today, so I've not been following as much as I could, but you know, Minneapolis looks like it's about to have another riot occurring. I think I woke up to people in the Discord talking about dumpsters are already on fire. There's somebody who got their one of the agents, I think it was an ICE agent, had their fingertip bit off. That photo's been floating around from one of the protesters. Another protester, and not even a protester, rioter, one of these rioters was shot in the middle of being arrested. So there's now a second person. And Margaret Zimoto kind of nails it on the head here. You know, Pam Bondi sent another strongly worded letter to Tim Walz today. Don Lemon didn't even get arrested at all. And of the people who were arrested, I think 2 of them have already been released. And so this is like, it's obviously completely different than the way that when it's us, right? When it's a J6er, or when it's a right winger, or when it's Daniel Penny, or when it's, you know, when it's any of these individuals, it's like you will get the full force of the law and then some. Like they'll fudge the numbers to make you suffer even more. And once again, here we are, like with Harmeet Dillon and Pam Bondi. It's like we have to write letters and the statute of limitations and all these other reasons why we can't actually enact justice. And again, like, kind of like what you're seeing in the green room, a lot of people almost like it's like they feel comfortable in this victim status. There's like a comfortability of remaining victims, being beautiful losers, as I think Stephen Wolf describes. And that's kind of what it is. It's like you're going to have to do more. You need to require more. And this whole trusting the plan shit is that's over the moon now at this point. Anybody saying that is lost the plot and needs to not be listened to at all. And I do pray that, I hope, whether it's from the police or somebody, some authority, please step in and help prevent a city from burning down. And maybe this is the point. Maybe this is what you'll get here is people coming out of their homes and going, we're not taking this. If the police won't protect us, if the president won't protect us, we're not going to let the streets burn one more time. But this happened 4 years ago. Especially with the Floyd riots as well too. So it's just irritating and frustrating. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I wanted to play this clip in light of what has happened today, where there was another ICE shooting and they shot the guy. I saw the video. It's come out that the guy who was shot was a nurse. I don't know the circumstances of why they were arresting him. I assume he was illegal. You know, they'll just let anyone become a nurse these days. But the point being is, it's like Trump is weak. He is a coward. And what Trump wants at the end of the day is, I hate when other people, like, it is kind of psychoanalyzing, but I think it's a fair assumption to say that when Trump threw his hat in the ring to be president back in 2015, he probably thought that it was just mismanagement and that I can get in and I will make America great again and everyone will love me. And that became the goal. So he gets in and it's civil discourse. And what does he try to do? He just tries to pad the walls. He's not actually trying to fix the country and save the problems. He's trying to make it so that the news isn't bad, that it's all puppies and kittens on Fox News. That's what he wants, which is why, right. And let's face it, dude, he's a boomer. He has these hyper liberal mindsets. I mean, he essentially is a liberal. You know, to him, and it's like, especially down here in South Carolina, dude, South Carolina is a solid red state. So the conservatives here live in a bubble. Like when I came to visit you, we were in a city and there were Somalis, there was Muslims, there was hijabs everywhere. And like, I felt like an alien in this city.
Yeah.
Down here, to them, it's like a heel. It's good old America down here. It's, you know, Charleston, South Carolina, you know. And so, like, the point being is, like, that's what Trump is essentially in a different version of that, obviously. But, like, he just wants everyone to get along. It's this idea that, like, it's all a misunderstanding. It isn't. Half of the people in America are not Americans, and they hate you and they want you dead. And they are willing to bite people's fingers off, to throw their bodies in front of cops, to barge into churches. And our side is like, oh, well, geez, guys, well, what are we going to do? Like, the statute of limitations is you know, what am I supposed to do? How about anything? How about I don't care? Arrest people and disappear them.
And the thing is it's this kind of goes back to like even the early periods of Donald Trump, which was you don't even have to trust him at all. You just have to trust in the fact that he would do whatever to protect his image. He would do whatever to protect the status. And so that was kind of a lot of the language and rhetoric that surrounded his first administration when people were going back and forth and will you do this or really do this? And they're like, nope, we'll do whatever it takes to maintain this image. But now it's working against us, which is just like it's the same thing that plagues the mass deportations. The reason why we're not getting mass deportations is because the moment that the New York Post and the New York Times and everybody else, WAPO, starts publicizing and the publications start putting, you know, the worst photos ever, that's going to start reflecting back on Donald Trump as like this kind of ruthless or brutal or cruel, you know, performative kind of dictator. And he doesn't want that to be his legacy. You know, if we're, you know, being I think, you know, we're being, you know, a bit hyperbolic on like how he's thinking about it. But the same thing here with Renee Nicole Good, which is like he's not going to act because he doesn't want to be seen as like what the media has painted him as the entire time he's tried to run for president, which is a dictator. And so here we are in the same position, this limp-wristed ruler, and it's almost like he's waiting for like people to literally start being killed, and then he'll come in, which is weak leadership, period. You don't wait until your side starts to, you know, bodies start racking up before you come in and do something. And it's unfortunate because it looks like we do have another powder keg building up, if not exploding right now as we speak, happening there in Minneapolis. And so let's just hope this doesn't turn into another 5 years of another DEI SJW stuff.
And if you recall, it was Trump who basically allowed BLM to destroy Minneapolis, and it was Sean Hannity's idea because he says, no, let them destroy it. So that it's the Zoran Mandani mentality that conservatives has, where it's like it's the accelerationism, where let it get so bad that people will realize that they messed up and change their mind. It doesn't work like that. That is one of the biggest red pills. Is these people will burn down their own house and unironically and unembarrassed blame you for it.
Right.
And it makes and this cannot be understated. It makes sense to them. They believe it. These people are psychotic and trying to, that's the thing. And this was something I appreciated that Nick said this week when he was talking about Don Lemon. He goes, he talks about how as Christians, and this is something that Christians get so up in arms about. They talk about how, of course, no one is beyond redemption. Like there's no sin other than blasphemy of the Holy Spirit that anyone can commit that prohibits them from salvation. Anyone who genuinely seeks salvation will be granted to them according to God. But it's the idea that everyone will be redeemed. Not everyone can be. And like, so he talks about that with Don Lemon. He goes, you think any amount of conversing with Don Lemon is going to change his mind on these things? It's not. It would take a miracle, and that's the point. So just quit worrying about Christians and people on the right are more worried about being perceived as the good guy than being the good guy. Do the right thing. Take your own side.
Yeah. You know, and particularly on that element too, I won't say who at all, but you have these, you know, and one of the problems that like really like was bothering me and why I got into this in the first place is in that same element, which is you have this, you know, the leading cause of death of young men between like 18 and 30 should not be suicide, right? It just shouldn't be. But the reason that it is partly because of the ignorance of these things. And that continual slide, like what you were saying, for Christians to have this continual kind of out-group bias. And it's as simple as like what Nick laid out the other day. Like I don't even care anymore, right? Like, and you shouldn't have cared in the first place. I don't know, you know, it doesn't matter how the zombie got infected. What matters is the fact that it's trying to kill my wife and children, right? It's like everyone's sitting here arguing like, well, it got infected like this. It's like, can someone put it down? You know, it's like, where's the 9mm? Put it down, right? And now, obviously, that's kind of a very inflammatory like example, but this is where we are. You know, good versus evil is a real concept. It's not a fairy tale. It's not just only in the Bible. It didn't just only exist in the Middle East. Here we are right now. Good and evil exist, and any other operant framing is missing the point completely. And you get to these things too, where like, and I'm glad Nick talked about this as well. With this, like everybody says the right versus left, it's not real, and it's like what a retarded thing to say. You know, when you walk in the street, you can see a leftist, right? You know, a leftist girl. You see it, septum ring, blue hair. There's tells. You know, it's to the point where there's archetypes of people that fall under these camps. You can say whatever you want about the uniparty, but the ideas and the people who believe in them are very real. So every time somebody says, you know, it doesn't matter, it doesn't exist, it's like, it does matter because the left-wingers will be the ones at my house burning it down. It won't be Arval's crew of whites only from Arkansas burning it down. Why is that? Well, that's because they're right-wingers. They believe loosely in a lot of the same things that I believe in too. So you have a lot of these working elements here too. But the point being is everyone's kind of hesitating when we need strong executive authority. We need people to come down and lay the law. We need arrest. We need people put in prison forever. No questions asked and no negotiations. But back to you.
Yeah. So speaking of we need good people, there was a clip from Nick that I was kind of caught off guard by, but not totally, mainly because I was very curious about how our guys would take it. So as you know, we're big advocates of Casey Puch. And Casey Puch actually came on Zeb's show this past Wednesday. Great interview. But Nick had an interesting take on that. So I want to play that clip and to get your take on it, Atlas. So it's Wednesday, third from the bottom.
Here we go.
$25.
There we go.
Vivek is more vulnerable in the primary than the general. Open primary. So if turnout is high, Vivek loses. His op, Casey Puch was on with Benny Plus Basil and Galleon Charter. He seems real. May 5th.
Yeah, I don't know. I looked at the polling. I support Casey Puch, but I don't think he can win. And I think that here's the problem. If we put all our resources behind a primary candidate that can't win and he loses, then people are going to say, all right, well, now you got to support Vivek. Or worse, we support Casey Puch, he wins, and then he loses in the general, and then we look like assholes. I think the best case scenario is that Vivek wins the primary and then loses the general. And then we could say, okay, well, we did it your way. Your guy won the primary and he lost. And I think we need to just actually punish the GOP. I think Vivek needs to lose in the general. So my mind is, I'm not going to intervene in the primary. I'm going to intervene in the general. If Casey Puch can pull it off, I wish him luck. God bless. Vivek has endorsements from everybody, from Trump, from Vance, from everybody up and down. I think he's got it. He's got money. I think Vivek is almost a shoe-in for the primary. We got to get involved in the general and say, stay home. The GOP needs to learn a valuable lesson, which is you endorse and you nominate anchor babies that insult American citizens, you're going to lose. We're going to take the state from you. And that'll hurt Republicans, and I hope it does. Fuck them. They appointed Vivek to do this. Shouldn't have done it. Lieutenant governor could have ran. They filled Vance's Senate seat to clear the way for Vivek. They shouldn't have done that. Big mistake. So no. I think that Vivek has to lose in the general. That's the message we need to say, that we need to send.
Oval had sent $25.
Yeah. Yeah, Zeb wanted to get my take like immediately too, and I didn't even know this had happened. So I watched a clip with Zeb, I think early in the morning yesterday. And I think Zeb was irritated about it, and I get it. I mean, I do get it. The point thing you can't miss is he says multiple times in there, like, I support Casey, and if he wins, God bless. I think it's more so of an objective look at it, which I have been looking at some of the polling data. And I actually covered it on stream when Vivek had, what did he say? Like, I'm swearing off social media, right? This is like the lowest dip in polling that he had at the time. And I think he dropped around to like the low 70s. And Casey had a huge spike. But since then, things have stabilized. And now we're back at Casey's like, I think under 6% again. And Vivek's close to like 88, 89%. In terms of the strategy, I can see it going both ways. I would have hoped, and obviously I'm biased, I'm here in Ohio, I would have hoped that Nick would say full-blown support for Casey Puch. But at the same time, another similar situation, Nick has also stayed away from the race of Fishback as well too. And on both of these elements, I think he's got reasoning for why he's avoiding putting his name in the ring. With Fishback, I think the way he addressed it was he didn't want to do it yet. For one, he didn't know too much about Fishback, but also he didn't want to hurt him with an endorsement, which meaning like he didn't want to endorse Fishback and then make Fishback's next 2 months answering, why did Nick endorse you? Is it because you like Hitler? Is it because that would obviously add a little bit of a hitch to the current momentum Fishback has. And I think it would be hard to deny that Fishback has momentum right now. I don't even think he needs a Nick endorsement at this point. He's doing fine on his own. Casey, on the other hand, is a bit different. Casey's going up against the entire machine inside of Vivek, which is Trump endorsements across the board. I think even Elon had endorsed him as well too. I'd have to double check on that. So take that one with a grain of salt. But it is an objective look when you look at the polling here. And so I guess the way that he's looking at it, maybe he is being too headstrong on the strategy here, which is if he looks at it in the terms of if you support Casey with all of the Groyper might, and then Casey loses in the primary, well, then it will look as if even inside of a primary in a singular state, the Groypers couldn't affect change, which would be a showcasing of power, which would then, for many people, show you, and they would use that as a weapon. They would say, now look, the Groyper movement's just an online movement. It's a bunch of bots. See, they have no real world influence. They have no real world power. So I think that's maybe why he's so hesitant on all of this, is he doesn't want to have the first kind of big push since he's had the generational run to end up as a flop. And so maybe there is an element of that's too headstrong and you're holding too tight, diamond handing too hard. But maybe he's right. Maybe there's an element that it does seem that it's too far away for Casey to win. I want Casey to win, obviously. But I think if you look at the polling data, I think objectively right now, when it leans that heavily towards Vivek, you'd have to say right now, it looks like Vivek's going to clean house in the primary. I don't want that to be the case. But regardless, Vivek can't win. So to me, whichever route that has to be, I'm fine with it. Vivek can't win. So whether Amy Acton wins or whether Casey Push wins, anybody but Vivek. And that point too, I would prefer Casey to win, just to have the win and the W. But what I'll take in second place of that, if I can't get that, is Vivek being shunned from politics. That has to happen.
Yeah. All right. So my take on this is I do disagree with Nick to a point where I had not talked with Zeb about this. He did not send me the clip. I did not know that you had basically watched it with him. I don't know if this was in private or something, but I assume I think it's a fair assumption that Zeb took it as malicious, but I don't think that's the case. I agree with you that I think Nick is being strategic. I think, as you point out, he says, I support Casey Push, but he lays out the strategy of really it's about making the GOP suffer at this point in time. Now, I think Nick's strategy, which you don't see a lot on our side, is playing the long game. Everyone on our side wants quick, easy victory. And it would be nice. It would be nice to have Casey Push, an Ohioan, become the governor and beat the GOP. That it's like a Star Wars story. It sounds great. But Nick is willing to sacrifice Casey Push to ensure a GOP defeat, which will then lead for the next Casey Push in the following thing. That's Nick's mindset. Now, where I disagree with his assessment is I think that you can have it both ways, where essentially if Casey beats Vivek in the primary, it's a safe assumption that he could probably win the state. Mm-hmm. Now, I have not delved into the polling. I can't say that with any absolute certainty or anything, but I think that getting the point, Vivek losing in the primary versus losing in the general, it has the same effect. I don't think the defeat would be as crushing as Nick's assessment states.
Would he give Zeb some grace? I don't think he would have characterized it as malicious. He probably would have characterized it as retarded.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
I guess I'm playing a bit of defense on the fact that I think there's just overall, I think Nick is looking at it from a long-term strategic perspective. And I think because he's not from Ohio, he doesn't have nearly as much and he might not know as much about Casey. So with that in mind,
there's that too.
I think that's what I would say. I would agree with Zeb that he might be just being very headstrong on the long-term positioning of America First, which is what you had said, willing to sacrifice Ohio and Casey just to get the W, over Vivek. And will that turn? Now, what I would disagree with is I think some people have said, well, if this election gets lost, Republicans will never get it back. I don't buy that at all. Especially when you see there's especially just even in the Trump era alone, how many of these different deep, minus 40, blue states flip to Trump plus 20. It's very possible that things can happen. And particularly too, the relocation, the amount of times people are moving anymore nowadays too, like the populations aren't as like stabilized as they used to be. So there's a lot of like moving pieces to it. And I guess the biggest thing that is in Nick's favor in this is like, like if we looked at the polling right now, I guess we could do that. Let me pull it up. But just to give people an idea of what Vivek's polling at right now. I'm gonna move it to this screen so I don't kill my CPU, but let's find this. Just so everyone's bearing with me, I'm trying to find one of the polling data that I can get. Here, maybe Emerson polling seems to be the first result. Put it on screen
Words.
for you. Ohio 2025 poll. Casey's not even on this. Because again, Casey entered very late. See if I can find some numbers. Let me see some primary numbers. From 538. That's crazy. I just want a poll. You know what I mean? Like, why is it so hard? Vivek primary polling, Casey graph. Like, give me something I can look at, please. New York Times. So, I mean, this is something to look at, I guess, right here. You see this middle section. This is Republican primary polls by pollsters. And so you can just see all these margins here. Ramaswamy, 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 you know, plus, plus, plus. Forgive me, I wish I had a better link up there. You'd think you'd be able to find this information on the spot. But just to show you guys, the polling is like by far and away in Vivek's favor. And so I'll just use the last number I saw. It was like 88% Vivek. So it's already bounced back and went above the numbers where it was before Casey kind of had that little shift in there. And those are a step in a way much different from the numbers you're seeing in the Byron Donalds, Jay Collins, and James Fishback polling. So to that effect, I'm obviously going to be a lot more pro Casey. But maybe you're right. Maybe this is a bit of an example of Nick not being too strategically sound from Nick. And also the point of he's commanding a lot more influence than where he was just a year ago. So mistakes might be made.
Yeah. And again, I get, because there's two schools of thought on this, which is kind of like from the standpoint of you, an Ohioan, it is like you want the best person to be governor. And you don't want Vivek, but you also, who's the other one? The Jewish woman, I forget.
Amy Acton.
Amy Acton. You don't want her either. You would rather have Casey Putsch. So I get why you want Casey Putsch. But for the strategically from Nick's point of view, it is about Vivek losing. In Nick's mind, it is okay to suffer through some Democrat rule, governance rule, as long as the GOP gets the message.
Well, that's the thing. Is like Ohio's been like Republican in the electorate, but in terms of governorship with DeWine, we have basically been a de facto Democratic state. So this whole thing that like Ohio's like this red, it's only in the electorate do we ever come off as like red. If you follow DeWine and like the way he's been on abortion and just his general like voting history, he's been a very, very, very weak Republican. And so Amy Acton, and understand this, Amy Acton's running on ad footage talking about Vivek talking shit about white Americans. So understand the Jew Democrat is using footage of Vivek talking shit on white Americans to help her run in this race too. So like she's still using the same elements that Casey is to go against Vivek. And so it'll still be on the same reason. So if Amy wins, it'll still be the same kind of dethroning element of if even Casey does it, which is people rejected you because you said they should be like India, right? It'll be this no matter who, right? And so I just want that point to stand too, because I'm sure people probably aren't that familiar with Amy Acton. But I guess anything else you wanted to ask about that one? Are you gonna move on?
No, I'm good. We can. I was genuinely kind of curious about that because I was not sure what your take would be, but seems like you and I are kind of on the same page with Zeb being a little bit more harsh against Nick.
Well,
but
I guess what I
it
would
is
say
what
is
it
this. I'm just disheartened the fact that Casey's spike like disappeared almost immediately. The other side to that is some people have said paid polling and all of this, and there is an element of that. You can't trust every pollster, but it's the fact that it's nearly every single one has a double-digit favorability to Vivek. And so at a certain point, it's like, yeah, you could say they're all paid, but then at that point, it's like, what can I trust then? So then I'm back to square zero. It's like, I have no idea. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And so watching, because I'm a big fan of Casey. I like him a lot. I wish him the best. I'm down to come out to Ohio and campaign on his behalf if I can shake it. But when I was watching his interview with Zeb, with my job working on a political radio station, I encounter a lot of political candidates that are clearly not going to win. And they all have these little copes. And there was a couple of those shining through. Now, again, there was that in the Trump 2015 campaign. You know what I mean? He was dissing people, but it was a little different. But like I remember Casey said to Zeb, he talked about how, well, Donald Trump gave Vivek Ramaswamy kind of a half-assed endorsement on Twitter, while he gave me an award for building a car and everything. So really, I have more an endorsement. And it's like, but you don't, though. Like, Donald Trump is not going to stand behind Casey Putsch. Donald Trump is the GOP, and and his vice president is JD Vance, whose son is named after Vivek Ramaswamy. If push comes to shove, he is going to back Ramaswamy, which sucks. I don't like it, but that's and again, that's not a diss on Casey. It's just like, come on, guys. Like, let's just be real about the situation. All right. We're not doing ourselves any favors by lying to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I would just say too, like on that, like money does talk. Obviously, I think money is unfortunately, as much as it is the root of all evil, it does run the world. This is why even no matter who you listen to, you'll hear follow the money. And to that effect, there is an element of like, how much of that does that matter? If you have millions of dollars versus crowdsourced hundreds of thousands, how much of that has a meaningful impact versus like billboards, marketing, materials, press conferences, being able to host events, buy out venues. So to that effect, and again, I'm not a political strategist. I mean, obviously I'm a political commentator, but in terms of like the actual nitty gritty, hands-on, like, the logistics of the political strategy on the ground, I don't know. I couldn't speak very confidently on the effectiveness and the differences of the money there, but I'm more so just looking at the polling there too. And it would be nice, as many of these kind of podcasts that Casey's done, it would be nice for like literally one major person to maybe endorse him. And it's kind of curious, like, why he's not getting any, right? And maybe I'm missing some, but it seems like there's not one like even bigger name out there that's not willing to help start backing up Casey. I guess I could say the same thing for Fishbank too, but maybe this is the point, right? We are shocked into this, like everyone's paranoid, everyone's a Fed, and so no one's willing to put their name out there. Otherwise, it's going to bite them in 2 years when all of a sudden Fishbank's Bill Ackman connection comes back to fray, and you're like, damn it, we should have known. And I think that's an element of it too, which is people are like, they don't want to build up a narrative where they're a Fed too, if all of the people they put their name on turn out to be like, big mistakes, flops, failures, or otherwise.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like stranger things have happened, but we can't like, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So
yeah, right.
Wishing luck to Casey Putsch, but we'll see where it goes.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like you didn't get a negative out of that. It was still him being like, I hope he wins. Wish him the best of luck. So it wasn't like, why is Casey running? Because that would have been, to me, that would have been very suspect. But that's not what we got. We just got a very objective, kind of cynical take, and I think people didn't want to hear that.
Yeah. People want to be encouraged right now, which I totally get. But again, that is being a woman. That is being emotional. No matter how bad things get, you have to play it smart. Now, I know we're kind of we're just rehashing things. I do disagree with the level of cynicism in Nick's take. But again, I don't think it's malicious or stupid.
Right. I get that. And then I think that's kind of the criticism coming from outside. Like with Zeb, I think he literally quoted this exact clip and said, "This is effing retarded." So I do think there's an element that people think the strategy here is stupid. I don't. I understand it, and I'm biased, obviously, but I do get the strategy because to me, like the whole country needs saved, not just Ohio, right? So like I get the America First long-term element, him wanting to protect the movement as much as he possibly can. So to that end, it's like I couldn't even fault him because, I mean, you'd be making the same claims about me because I wouldn't even know either too, right? I wouldn't know who to trust, and especially if I was in that position, I would be very, 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 very careful moving forward. But yeah,
exactly.
To the next one.
All right. So hold on. So this is a big thing. We're kind of in line with that, where we're being strategic about what to do in upcoming elections and whatnot. This was kind of an aside about how during like the 2020s, COVID, these years, you know what I mean? I kind of joked in 2024 about how like I almost forgot trannies existed. And this is one of those things where it's like the left, we got so focused on things like the JQ, which is important. And like how the GOP is pushing Vivek's and JD Vance's in our face, where we shifted all of our attention to the enemies on the right, but we can't lose focus of the enemies on the left. And all the things happening in Minneapolis, again, is a perfect example of that. Renee Nicole Good or whatever, Nicole, whatever. And now this other guy who's just been shot today. So I want to go ahead and go to Thursday. It is 5th clip down. The left is still the enemy.
Do you want to play the next one right after that? Or come back? The left-right coalition.
Play the first one first.
Got it.
They are the fucking enemy. I know it's really trendy on our side of the internet to say that left and right is just a distraction. Let me tell you something. It isn't. It isn't. If you live in a red state, in a red city, you might have the luxury of thinking that. You might have the luxury of feeling that way. If you have never been harassed, if you have never been intimidated or preyed upon by the radical left, then you have the luxury of thinking that. But these people, a BLM chapter leader, a school board leader, a teachers union member, if you live in a blue state, you know what I'm talking about. You live in Minneapolis, you live in Chicago, you live in New York, you live in a blue state, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These activists, these pieces of shit, local Democrat activists, members of the Democrat machine in your blue city, you know these people are subhuman. These people are urchins. They are scum. And you know they hate you. They hate the taxpayer. They hate white people. They hate your children. They are deadbeats. And it is like their life's mission to extract resources from the taxpayer, the largesse, the amount of corruption, the amount of welfare, these public unions, teachers union, board of education, whatever, these kinds of people, they are degenerate, they are welfare queens, they exist to extract resources, they exist to go to demonstrations, they exist to elect community activists, community organizers to city positions and other local powerful positions, basically to enforce race communism. That is what they are in the business of. It is straight up race communism. They are militant, pro-black, pro-indigenous, POC. They hate white people. They hate Christians. They hate the suburbs. And they exist basically to destroy white neighborhoods, take money from white neighborhoods, corrupt white children, and ruin the city. It's a collection of the ugliest, stupidest, biggest mediocrities in the world. And you look at the kind of stuff that they get into in their community forums, their DSA chapters, their Facebook groups, whatever. It's straight up race communism. It's like workers of the world unite. It's red flag, literally red communist flags, black power fist, inclusivity flags, pro-tranny shit, pro-gay stuff, protect immigrants, protect illegals. I think people forgot. I think people got so caught up in virtue signaling about the Jew stuff. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's no bigger, Jew critic than me, but people got so caught up in that they forgot maybe what we're dealing with. I never forgot. I wasn't allowed to forget. I came up with that because I live in the suburbs of Chicago, dealt with that my whole life, saw it happening my whole life, in the news my whole life, that they have ruined our city. They are killing our state because of this stuff, because you have these degenerate scumbags in the teachers union, these aldermen in the city of Chicago. They have stolen and looted and they have ran the city into the ground. Now we have this black power mayor. They have ruined what was a working class white city. They have ruined what was a Republican state. And these are some of the worst people alive. These are some of the worst people walking the streets, and they hate you and they are your enemy. If you have any kind of traditional politics, conservative politics, you're even just like a regular normie Trump supporter, they want to wreck your life. Okay? Just so you understand. So when I read this stuff, it's like ding, 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 a BLM activist. And who's the other one? A St. Paul Public School Board of Education member. Her name is Nikema Armstrong and Chantel Louisa. You know what flavor that is, okay? We know what that looks like.
Oh, just a couple of things too. While there's a few comments that was in there. Geogaster said that you're going to comment on my comment. Sorry, I must have missed it. I said at the beginning of the show I'm on like a bajillion ounces of Dayquil, man. So I apologize for that. It's taking everything in me to just sit here and not fall asleep.
The nice thing about being sick, Atlas, is it makes your voice even deeper.
Which is crazy, and I don't know if anybody likes that, to be honest. One of these comments here is like, they don't all have real jobs. I lived in the city for 10 years. I was surrounded by it. I literally could not even get my medication after my tonsil surgery because I was being blocked off by a huge crowd of college kids who did not have real jobs during the riots in 2020, the summer of love. This push here, like, again, I know you're a big fan of Caroline Borisenko. I get that. But no, like unless you want to say that Columbus is like the one city in America that's completely different from every other city, sure, you can make that argument. But there's a huge plethora of these people. I lived in the city for a huge period of time. We're watching as Minnesota and Columbus and all these other states have these massive fraud programs. There's huge bunches of people who don't work at all. You can, in my apartment complex alone, all you would do every day and in and day out would be people all hours of the day, just having events, doing these things, and you would be at the same people over and over and over again. There's a massive problem with this. And part of it is because the government subsidizes their lives, so they don't need to work full real-time jobs. They work partial times, or they do like DoorDash, Uber Eats, things like that. And again, sure, there's elements like we saw with the nurse who has a real job, but they don't all have real jobs. It's not like this big, like there's like this big gotcha somewhere where like these liberals are actually like, they're sipping tea and they have like that's just, come on, dude. Like, you were missing the plot here. But the big point here with it.
So before you continue, what does he mean by that? They all have real jobs. He's referring to the liberals?
I'm assuming he's referring to like the protesters and all the people who are like actively like rioting and stuff. He's saying that all these Antifa members are actually like these MI6 agents. I'm being hyperbolic. But these are kind of like these pushes that you get from Caroline Borisenko. That's not actually like white is what the enemy is. It's capitalism. It's all this coded language. And again, like if that's your coded tea, that's fine. But like I don't believe in any of that. To me, that's kookery. That's kind of like John Doyle level belief of Republicans. To be honest with you, and I'm not trying to be mean, but like I don't believe in that whatsoever. I think Caroline Borisenko is insane, and wouldn't be a person I'd recommend anybody to listen to at all. And you could say you've been in these meetings all you want. I lived in the city for over a decade, man. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, and so like, what are we saying here? That there's no like malicious anti-white sentiment from these people, or that there's not actual like fraud going on, and look at like the reaction from Somali people. After it, they were arrogant. They were like, yeah, we're here to steal your jobs and take your women. That's what we're here to do. Get your money up, bitch. That's what they're.
Well, here's the thing. It's like point proven.
Okay.
You know, like that, I'm literally sick giving like the easiest pushback of all time. And your response is to say like, I'm not smart enough and you're going to leave. So like, okay. And don't make an argument then don't come back. I don't know what to tell you, man. I know where your source material is coming from. I've clicked on some of the videos you've posited on these links. It's all from Caroline Borisenko. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, and you know what's funny? One of the last times I actually interacted with Jeff Younger was because I quote tweeted one of Caroline Borisenko's thumbnails because it was like literal dog shit and I was making fun of how low effort it was. And Jeff Younger responds and he was like, "Do people still listen to Caroline Borisenko?" And I was like, "I guess so." And that was like 8 months ago. And I guess she shows her face here again. I was hoping he'd still be in chat to correct me if I'm wrong. But I guess one of the major tenets of them is that conservatives have it wrong and that it's not whiteness is the enemy, it's capitalism. But they view whiteness, they view white people as like the upholders of capitalism, and that it's capitalism is the real enemy, not white people, right? And so it's like a bit of a move away from the racial lens. But going back to my point about the zombies, is like we're arguing like how do they get infected? It's like it doesn't matter. What matters is like we need them to not be attacking us anymore.
And dude, that's not even true. Like I've talked about this before, how basically like my TikTok thinks I'm a liberal. Like, and like, so we all know the expression Black Twitter. Black Twitter's a thing. Black TikTok is a thing. These people are like rabid racists against white people. Like they do hate you. It's not because they're poor. Like I see like well-off black people that are virile. Like they walk down the street with their phone and film a white family and film their kids and are like, fuck them. Like I like if the cops, if it's like if I could get away with it, I'd stomp those kids to death. Like these people do hate you. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. We can argue about capitalism and racism all the live long day, but you have to understand that these people are dumb enough to where like this is one of the biggest things. This is one of the biggest red pills. Is it's like when you think and you go, okay, here's another person that's like they look different than me, they sound different than me, they talk different than me. You know, it's not simply that they have a different perspective. They literally don't process information the same way. And I'm not saying all of them are that way, but you know, it's like you can, like I've talked to people that contradict themselves in the same sentence. And when you point that out, like me, the dumbass thinks that they will like understand like, oh, that is a contradiction. It makes sense to them. It's totally illogical, yet they understand it.
Yeah.
And I know how bad this
like,
sounds.
When the two different, like a man and a woman sees the same thing, they come to two different conclusions. Or in this case, right. the right and the versus the left, they see the same exact thing and they come to two different conclusions. This was exhibited by the Renee Nicole Good scenario. Everybody saw the same video. But you have half of the country is saying wow, look at that murder. We need to go fight these Nazi, state police or whatever. And the other half goes, look at this crazy woman interrupting a federal operation. And then she tried to run over the officer. She hit the officer. No wonder she got shot. Two entirely different conclusions from the same thing. And, and it's not even like, worth a debate, I guess. The thing is like, I don't know, just like go outside, we're good. I lived in the city. I'm not going to sit here and say like lived experience and all that. But when people say these things, I tune them out. Like, I'm not hearing it anymore. Like, I go outside. I've had a very public job. Was a bartender for over like 10 years too. Talk to people, doing DoorDash, Uber Eats. Like, part of the reason my wife was even helped, part of the reason what helped my wife be red pilled was the way that these people look at her, was the way that the Mexican looks at her, was the way that these Somalians stare you down in the grocery store, was the way over and over and over again. And I could think of countless examples that would go in the light of that. And, to act as if it's a non-issue or it's like a fake thing, to me, it's just, we're losing the plot. But moving on though, what's the next thing?
Quick thing, real quick. Markets. You can disagree with us, that's fine, but don't message like a bitch. Don't message like a woman. Like, well, okay, I guess you're wrong, man. Grow up, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we can have the Caroline Bartzingo debate if you want to. Like, I'm not afraid of that at all. I would love to go back and forth over Caroline Bartzingo. I'm one that is not afraid of debates. I'm more than willing to have that. But I think he's gone already. What is the next up you wanted to go to?
I guess we can go. We'll go to not the very next one, but the one about Don Lemon terrorizing the church.
Yeah, that is Thursday number 6.
Yeah. Yes.
Break down the door of every. Now Don Lemon is leading the charge into a church where a law enforcement officer is a pastor, terrorizing families, children, while they are there to worship God, while they are there to worship Jesus Christ. You want to have a protest, do it at the federal government building lawfully during the day on the sidewalk. You want to disagree, make your voice heard online, in the papers, whatever. You go to somebody's church service on a Sunday and you shut down the whole thing. Now people can't go to church because you are protecting protesters, impeding law enforcement, looking into fraud and illegal immigration because these people who are welcomed in are stealing $8 billion from the taxpayer. Layers to this. And then when you get held accountable, you go on TV and said, this is about white supremacy. It's about white people and Christians being entitled. White supremacist Christians being entitled. You think left and right is a fake divide? You think that's a distraction? You think that all it's going to take for us to unite with Don Lemon is we're just going to talk about the Israel issue? If me and Don Lemon can see eye to eye on, I don't know, Netanyahu should stop the war, we could forget about all that. No, absolutely not. We can never unite with these people. And as far as I'm concerned, they should all be put in jail. Throw the book at them. I don't care. Throw the book at them. Whatever charge will stick, hit them with it and throw them in jail. They are our enemies. They are better off in jail than they are walking the streets. They are an impediment to law and order. You want to have a country, you need to deport the illegals. You need a border. You want to do that, you need to crush the protesters that think this is fascism. They think it's white supremacist Nazism to deport illegal immigrants. They're using their cars. They're harassing law enforcement, shooting fireworks at them, blocking them with their cars, running them over with their car, hitting them with shovels. Yeah, those people need to be put in jail forever. And as far as I'm concerned, the more of them you can arrest, the better. But this is the failure of the Trump administration. We're not arresting enough people in Minneapolis. We're not arresting the fraudsters. We're not deporting the illegals. The protesters that are impeding law enforcement, we're not arresting them. Out of all these demonstrators that broke into the church, Two are being prosecuted, just 2. I saw a lot more than 2 people break into the church. It's at least a dozen. Don Lemon, they're not prosecuting. So what is even the point of electing a Trump government is if this is the outcome? If we can't actually get what we voted for, if we can't actually punish our enemies. And by the way, there's no moral equivalency. These people are in the wrong. They're in the wrong. We've been fighting for 10 years to fight for our civil rights, our constitutional rights. We want free speech. We want to be able to talk on the internet. We want to be able to demonstrate. We want to be able to protest. We want to be able to get a permit, go out in public and do a protest. We want to rent a public space and put on an event. Go to a college campus and have an exchange of ideas, have an internet show, post on Twitter. That is what we're doing. These people want the right to crash their car into an ICE vehicle. They want the right to crash a church service. They want the right to break into a hotel and barge down, break down the door of every ICE agent that's staying inside. That's not lawful. There's no moral equivalency. We want to enforce the laws. We want to use the sovereign authority of the Constitution to prevent more immigrants from coming here. They want to protect illegal immigrants that have no legal standing to be here. No moral equivalency between the two positions.
It's not even like, I wouldn't even say getting like revenge at this point. Like what we need, like what, and this is like the title of my stream a few streams ago. Like we are begging for justice at this point. Like we are in a position, we are like begging, like please equalize the sides. Like where is the equalizer? Like when will the hammer come? We were promised the hammer would come to the left. It would knock things down. We would get back. We would get some justice. And this has been a through line going all the way back to January 6th. And you think about all of these, they basically are loose ties, or loose ends rather. And every loose end that the Trump administration, the Republicans, the right wing doesn't clean up, it's another loose end that the left holds as truth. For example, January 6th. Because the Trump administration, there's never been any strong answer punishments handed out over the way the January 6th Commission handled themselves or the way that the people actually operated in terms of violating people's constitutional rights by putting them there. We get no justice. So what the left takes is that when the left takes as inaction from the Trump administration, they take that as, oh, that must mean that we were completely vindicated. We were completely right about J6. They all did deserve to go to prison. It was this violent insurrection. They're all these violent Nazis. And the more that you let these things build up over and over and over and over again, where you don't get any action, they are more, they themselves, the left, feels more galvanized, motivated, and justified in doing what they're doing. Because, and then if you think about it, all the people at home who aren't these crazy Antifa people, well, how would they react if all of a sudden the headline was, the Trump administration, arrests 9 senators who were, 9 people on the J6 Commission because of their violations of the Constitution, and then they lay out the cases, and then they win in court, and these people get put in prison. Well, now you don't have an easy say of like, oh, January 6th was this violent thing, because then people go, well, what about all the people who were arrested who were on the commission? Now there's like some back and forth here, but we're not getting any back and forth. All we're getting is the left has its complete way, and the right wing sits here and like it does every time our guys in office, we beg for them to do something. It is the same MO, it's the same method, and it's a bunch of beautiful losers, and we have to get over this hump.
Well, and thinking about it right now, it a part of this is encouraging, not from an accelerationist point of view, because I'm not an accelerationist, but if you think about it, where there was this state that we're in right now was always inevitable, because there is the American nationalist, there is the heritage American, and the sensibilities and the goals and the aspirations that we have as Americans, which, let's be honest, have been in conflict with the ruling class in this country for like over a century. This divide was always inevitable, and the encouraging thing about this is it has reached a nexus point where the lies, the things that they say to win elections, it has gotten to the point where the establishment has always been. The establishment has been getting its way for 60 for 6 decades and then some. They are always winning, but the promise because the establishment winning is us losing, our grief is escalating, which is why the promises have to escalate, which is how we got to Donald Trump talking about a border wall. Now we're talking about nationalism. Now we're talking about white nationalism and Christian nationalism. And it's like, it's gotten to the point where this administration, this 4 years is like, hopefully it is just like a true nexus point where it is like, look, they are not going to deliver, because to do any of this, like think about early, like at the beginning of the year of 2025, when Gustavo, whatever, the Mexican guy was deported to Venezuela, and an American judge said that Trump had to bring him back. They unlawfully deported him, and you have to bring him back to the United States. And basically, in order to fight that, it has gotten to the point where to even pretend to do what they promised would be to shake the system. But Donald Trump and the GOP is the system. So now they just don't do what they say. And it's so obvious. The discourse is going to escalate.
Right. And, I guess to go back to the earlier point, I am an accelerationist. And I wish I didn't have to be, but I am very realistic with what I see in front of me. And what I see in front of me is, despite everything happening, despite where we are right now in the year of our Lord 2026, that everything that has occurred, we still don't have a stronger, right, unified front on the right wing. And a lot of this is because people aren't paying attention. A lot of it is just the general, decay and the fall of man. A lot of guys who would otherwise be with us aren't, because they're drinking Mountain Dew and they're off the Twinkies and they're in Walmart scooting around on some, oversized scooter. And so I don't want to feel like I have to push for these things, but I want to be very realistic in the sense that, I don't think that we're going to get the reality in the president and the ruling class that we want without extreme consequences. And I mean that because, and I say that not wanting it, I say that as it feels it must be that way. The old slogan of a conservative is a liberal who is mugged by reality. Well, it seems like that's what we're all waiting for. We're waiting for every single person to be, punched or hit or drugged down in the streets. Maybe it takes that their kids are being drugged in the streets, but just hoping to vote and keeping your mouth shut and just being concerned about, your financial security at your job because you only have one skill and you're terrified because you couldn't go anywhere else to make things work. It's these are all a batch of problems that were built up by the people themselves. The left didn't make you take that shit job, and the left didn't make you have only one skill to work around. It's not a, it's all your fault to say that. But to say, though, accelerationism in the primary objective is what you had alluded to earlier, which is massive loss. And then you turn and you look and you go, okay, is this enough? Have you seen enough? Can we change things now? And so to reference what with Vivek and Nick Fuentes, I think that to ensure that we get that point needs to be a complete and utter collapse of the GOP. Not that there's some kind of infighting between the Trump administration and JD Vance as we get to 2028, but that all of the Trump endorsements and the major figures in the Trump and the MAGA group fall. Make sure that they cannot continue, cut MAGA off at the knees where it is right now, say the scam will not continue 1 second longer. We want a real America First movement. All of you MAGA acolytes are done with. We have to cut you off right here. And I think that's the element of where Nick is pushing this, which is it might not be good enough if the Trump administration just fails. And then you get, and from the ashes, you get JD Vance's and other guys saying, well, I'll do this a little bit differently than Trump. No, kill it all right now. No more hopium, no more copium. At the knees, chop it right now. Force people to be under all of the left wingers, unfortunately. And then maybe we'll come back to the table. That's the primary focus of accelerationism, right? It's not to take it all the way down and then rebuild from there. But at least to me,
right,
in phases, you go, is it bad enough now? Can we not push the edges? Can we try to correct course now? And now it seems like we're kind of maybe 1 or 2 tiers away from the complete collapse, and maybe that's what it'll take.
Yeah, I mean, I get accelerationism if you think we're all there. The idea that we're gonna destroy the country to like the caveman era. It's going to be like Mad Max or something, and then we're going to rise from the ashes. That's just retarded. But on that point, though, I'd say let's go to Friday, the very first clip. Go ahead and play that one.
1 second. We got a lot of chats in here. Let me go to a couple of these.
Oh, we do? Okay.
One from Jared Williams again. He says, I think Don Lemon not getting arrested was another huge blow to the Trump Department of Justice and this myth of reestablishing some semblance of law and order. Yeah, I would say what really damaged it wasn't that he wasn't arrested. It was the fact that we got the very predictable next day. Pam Bondi was enraged at the decision. I don't care that you're enraged. What are you going to do about it?
Put him in jail anyway.
Right, exactly. This one from Mr. Moss says, what I'm afraid of is we are the civilization with the barbarians past the gates, saying no violence while all falls. No Fed posting, obviously, very obviously. But this is kind of a good way to look at it, which is that's kind of like where we are. It's like you have people, we are, as Nick said in there, and people might, be offended at this if you want to, but like right now we are the raped. And that is seriously like the parameter in the nexus of which we're operating from. It's like a bunch of people with their eyes wide open, terrified, scared, and they're all complaining, whinging, and it's like that doesn't help. We need actual action. Instead of just sitting here on your back heels, waiting for something to happen to you, like let's be proactive and prevent these things. Obviously speaking to the Trump administration and people around it. Let me go to a couple down so I don't stick on here. Jake Brown says, still don't know why Nick won't help support Patriot Front or why Orval is doing to build a stronger far-right movement. Patriot Front, I think he's talked about a few times. It's just largely doesn't like the militant, the optics of Patriot Front. I think his general criticism is that they could do all of what they're doing still currently without doing the show of force marches. And with Orval, I think it's more so the element of Nick is denying escapism. And that's kind of where Orval is at. Orval is kind of given up completely on the system. He is against infiltrating the institutions. He's on building the parallel. But I think where they're at now, I think Nick's kind of just said, like, best of luck, right? That's just not his cup of tea.
And I think it's...
Go ahead.
Why are people reading so much into what Nick said? For all the people that hate Nick, they really do care a lot about what he thinks. And I'm not trashing this. It's kind of hard for me to read it, but whoever put that comment, I'm not trashing them specifically, but it's like like you just said, he's not dissing them. Okay, maybe he is with Patriot Front, but I get why. Orval is just like, you can't escape.
Right.
Let's just say in 100 years, Orval's camp is the last white people on earth. You think they're just going to leave you alone? It's not going to happen.
Right. Well, but that's attached to the fact of they do hate the European, right? They hate the white Christian. Like that's the reason why they would hunt you down to the last ends of the earth, which is like, again, those ideas aren't present in the other framework we talked about earlier. But again, what was the clip you wanted to turn to?
Number 1 on Friday.
Number 1 on Friday. This is okay. So now we're moving to Trump's absolute failure on Renee Nicole Good. That's where we are.
We've talked about how in the past couple of weeks, Trump has come out and undermined his own law enforcement policy. He came out a couple weeks ago, and there was an article in Axios that said that he and members of the administration want to change the strategy, not a vote of confidence. Then he comes out the next week and says, we're really just going after the worst of the worst, the violent offenders, the people with a criminal rap sheet. Again, undermining the policy. Well, today he comes out and says Renee Good was a tragedy and a mistake was made. Now you're not just undermining the policy, now you're undermining your people. Now you're undermining your own personnel. And what message does that send to both sides? The message it sends to law enforcement is, if you make a mistake, maybe Trump doesn't have your back. So what are law enforcement going to do? They're going to try not to make mistakes, which means they're going to lean out. They're going to lean back rather than lean in. They know if they mess up, maybe Trump won't have their back. Maybe they're going to get prosecuted. Loss of confidence means loss of follow-through, lack of follow-through, loss of resolve. And the message for the protesters is, if we keep pushing, they will blink. If we show up and demonstrate as they did today in freezing temperatures, if we show up and impede law enforcement, if we die, we'll become martyrs. We'll undermine the enemy's resolve. There's an air of inevitability. Huge problem. So we'll talk about that in greater detail.
Just to reference the Patriot Front, 'cause the discussion's still ongoing in the chat here. GeoGasser says unity displays are part of our culture. Dismiss Patriot Front as mere LARPers is kind of shallow assessment. I think this is probably better looked at in the framing and perspective of what's happening in Australia right now between Joel Davis, Thomas Sewell, and all of the Australian, white nationalists. And this is the fact that, as of like a week ago, I'm reading a Telegram chat that's shutting down like all these major groups in Australia because they can't. The government came down with some of the most egregious draconian laws preventing groups from organizing over certain ideals. And now half of them are in prison and now they can't even organize anymore. And part of the reason of that was because of their continual push for having the optics, doing the Nazi salutes, having the embellishments, wearing the Hugo Boss, doing those kind of very poorly the optics on it is awful for people who don't understand and are retarded. And that's kind of the nexus, which is you have to operate with the average person is retarded. So you can't make your movement open up to a bunch of these different liabilities. So I can't remember if it was Joel Davis's Telegram I saw a screenshot from, or if it was one of Thomas Sewell's. But it was a sad message, and it was talking about how, sorry guys, God bless, maybe we'll see each other in the future. But it's like these people are like, they're getting disbanded and broken apart because the Australian government has now have so much room to step in and shut this stuff down. But in terms of Renee, go back to the clip. We'll go ahead.
I was just going to say to GeoGasser, it's like, look, man, I know where you're coming from. I know it feels good to do these things, but we're not there yet. And the truth is, it doesn't work. Let's be honest, it feels good to be in a parade. A white nationalist parade demonstration does not look good. It does not help.
I mean, I went to, in 2011, or maybe it was 2009, I went to at least had to have been at least 8 or 9 different Tea Party movements in big conferences across Ohio, because my dad was was very involved in that. Tea Party movement was disbanded less than a year later. They're like, when you see all these shows of force and these protests and stuff, I think it's specifically in America, there is such a negative view to a protest now that it almost has a negative effect. It's like if you see people protesting for a certain thing, you automatically assume they must suck. These people just must generally suck. Not all of them. We probably need context there. But to this point though, and this can't be forgotten. I don't want to get too far away from the clip. The main point in there is the fact that Trump did throw ICE under the bus. When he says ICE makes mistakes sometimes, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember what he exactly said there, but that is the signal that's being sent, which is to these people in these uniforms, which is, hey man, if you do something that might be questionable, president's probably not going to have your back, and you may very well end up in prison for 20 years. And so what does that do, right? Well, now all the ICE people are now they don't want to do what they were actually asked to do. Now they have even more proverbial, metaphorical, restrictions placed upon them. And to me, it's there couldn't have been a worse thing to have been said by Donald Trump than what he actually said. I mean, he could have full blown taken the leftist side, but that would have destroyed his career. But he said basically the second worst thing he could have said on that issue. But Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is exactly, I mean, hot take over here. I'm sure you said this. Nick has definitely said this. I said this on Overton with Zeb. Zeb said it on Overton with me. What is going to happen is they're either going to not do mass deportations, or the minute there's any pushback, someone is going to get hurt and they're going to pussy out. This is what happened in 2018. This is what happened with George Floyd. This is what happened every time a black guy got shot in a Wendy's parking lot by a cop. They threw the cop under the bus for no reason other than as like a good faith payment to the left. It's okay. We are paying the left for their ears with our own blood. It isn't working. It will take 100 Renee Nicole Goods. I don't want that. I don't wish that, but that is what is going to happen. And we need to have the balls to say that and do that. And Trump doesn't, because these people are in on the take. It is a grift.
I was with Nick actually in the late 2024. I was completely off the Trump train, and it was largely on that. It was on the fact that I knew he wouldn't do the deportations. I'd had enough evidence from previous instances where he would bend and fold because he just wants the New York Times to praise him. It's like that seems to be like what Donald Trump will do is like whatever Donald Trump would do when you're thinking about trying to predict his next move. It's like, well, what would make him look good in the New York Times? So that's probably more than likely what will end up happening. And it is a selling, but this is what I mean. Like this is why I talk about the Anakin Skywalker little meme, right? Like you lack conviction, but that is like where I am. Like I'm looking at everyone around, like you lack conviction. I don't give a shit about the tears of these people. My family matters more to me. And like, I'm sorry that a lot of people lose sight of that when the moment the tears start rolling, but I don't. And maybe it's just an element of a lot of people have experienced a lot worse than others. And that does go to the point with what Nick was saying, which was like, if you're in a red city, in a red town, in a red state, you might, a lot of this stuff might skip you by. But for people like myself who have literally witnessed it in a period of like, less than like 10 years, watch the city I grew up in, I wanted to stay in the rest of my life, get violated, annihilated, and now it's become New India, on top of everything else going on top of everything else that is downstream from that, from the crime. And that's kind of it, right? This is kind of like, I heard this from somebody, and this is a great point, which is because we had this like big surge of liberalism and a bunch of these liberals and like freedom and all that, it was in this fear of, they didn't want to be afraid of the law, right? Which is like, they want the full-blown protections of the First Amendment. People didn't want a strong monarchy because they didn't want to have to fear the law. Well, guess what? In a society where you don't have to fear the law, you have to fear the criminals. And to me, I would much rather live in a society where you fear the law. I would much rather have a very strong and rigid set of principles that are very easy to go by. Very easy, Don't cross red, right? It's like, these are very simple concepts. Whereas when you have to fear the criminals, it is the Wild West. It is everybody for themselves. And it's hoping that the courts are just on your side. You're in the right place at the right time. You get the right judge who's going to serve you on that day. And too much is just up to chance. So,
Dude, and it's so bad. Like the word anarcho tyranny gets thrown around, but it is that. It's the worst of both worlds. We are getting an authoritative government that will come after you with speeding tickets, and if you kill someone in self-defense, they're gonna throw the hammer down on you. But you open a young girl's throat in a train, and they're gonna let you go because you're black. Dude, it's banana. And I don't want to like oust anybody, but I have literally had people in law enforcement tell me, they've said, if a black dude breaks into your house and you kill him in self-defense, you are better off trying to hide the body than calling the police.
And that's just like, but you can't live like this, right?
Right.
Entirely unsustainable, because on a long enough, like, that is a pressure, right? There's a pressure that is one-sided, that leans one direction. And over a long enough period of time, that will, first of all, before you get to the actual physical extinction of said people, what you will have is what you're seeing right now, which is like a tiering system, which is like, you can see this in different categories. You can see it in the workplace being upheld and propagated by DEI, which is, black people and nons will get hired over people, white people. You see this in like with the way that the sexual marketplace treats things, the way that you see all this interracial stuff, right? And so societally, what you'll see has taken place, which is the majority of a lot of white men that I come across are a bunch of fat, lazy, beta males. And what used to be, and this is the thing, like people get offended at this, like it's real. Like I'm sorry, like I go outside, like there's no hiding it. I see you people, I shake hands, I like to talk to people. But it's sad, and I say this not because it's like I want it to be the case. I'm saying it because I'm just objectively observing things. So what used to be like the 90s, like what men would get mad at, right? These old kind of like the dad's just like this big cuck, and like he's an idiot, doesn't know anything. You know, the wife's always yelling at him. That became reality for people. That is the reality we live in now. So what men used to make fun of and get mad at, literally now it is. And it's kind of like goes in a level of this pre-programming, but it's all these social reinforcements. And then you see it on these other ends too, with like this lady who bought like $400 worth of groceries to go give to some random Somalian because like she was doing her part. And it's like, imagine that. Imagine you're the husband to this woman and $400 of your hard-earned money just left your wallet because she wanted to go give it to some black dude that she doesn't even know. Like are you the head of the household? Really? Like, how does this dynamic work then? What are you going to say to your wife? No, don't give it to that black dude. How's that conversation go in most homes? So just to put the point out there, it's like, there's a lot of these extreme kind of restrictions and social reinforcements. And there's a very complex like layering to all of this, which is why me being pragmatic, I do lean towards accelerationism because I have not lost faith completely, but I have a lot less faith in the men in our society standing up to these problems. I wish I didn't say that. I wish I didn't have that belief. But I'm telling you, I can't deny what I see when I go outside. And that's just where I'm at.
Dude, I know. And that's where like to a certain extent, I'm at an advantage and Nick's at an advantage because it's like standing on business in the political realm today in America is hard enough as it is. All women are liberal. All of them. Not one is conservative enough. And it is, you know, that's just another layer of problem for you if you're involved in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and it is sad.
We can't all be AtlasThugged where he's got his girl in shape, you know,
well, it's
in every sense.
The thing is like, I actively try to avoid that. Like I try to I don't want people to think like, I think I'm like this end all be all example at all. I'm just saying like, when people say like, you know, they're Fed posting and they're talking about, you know, this revolution and all this, it's like, with who? I'm like, bro, with who? I don't see you guys at church. Like I don't see a single guy would want to take into the trench with me when I go out. I'm like, I'll go alone. I don't need an extra liability. And these are just like basic assessments that I run in my head. I was a personal trainer. I'm just saying, in these areas that I've been categorically disheartened across the board with the average state, particularly of white men. And that's just from a lot of anecdotal experience and what I just see outside in general. It's my Walmart example. It's like until I can see a crowd of men who I would imagine I could go to war with in Walmart, this whole idea of like overtaking anything, I think to me is LARPing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a couple clips about that from Nick also where he talked about like one super chatter was like, become as large as possible, accrue mass. And it's like, no, not how it works. The best fighters are lean.
Yeah, lean over mass. We have this one from Rowan Ridge Farm, and it says, how have the Amish managed to circumvent these problems? Well, part of it is they're just like, they have lived in a parallel ecosystem for a hot minute. I would imagine, well, depends on what community you look at too. It's like the Mennonites and then the more hardcore Amish, which I think some people don't even know there's a distinction there. But I lived around them. I've been in Ohio for a long time. Mennonites are those who have a bit more of a stronger belief in electricity. And then there's ones that have belief in none of it. And then there's also the way that they get special protections and tax system. And if you want me to be quite frank with you, part of the reason why they have been able to circumvent these problems is because they're basically de facto treated as almost like if they're the Jewish population. They get a lot of very similar protections. Same thing with like Native Americans as well too. They're like not to say they're protected class, but there are elements that allow them protections that otherwise groups don't have to go through. Like taxes would be one of them. You know, they say they don't use the roads, but dude, they're riding their horse and buggy shitting all over the roads down, you know, everywhere. So there's certain things like that's because of their belief system. And for a lot of them, they don't want to escape that. So they're fine living like out in the woods somewhere. And to them, it's like at the same time, would you consider an Amish an American citizen? Like if they don't participate in society, you don't see them very often. Like I would say they're less American citizens. They're like foreigners almost in their own enclaves, like around here. I would foreigner is a good way to describe it. But I would say they're probably less of an American citizen than the average person.
No, I think you're right on that. But we're coming up to the end of the show, and I want to end one last clip before we wrapped, kind of on a high note. So this is the last clip from Friday.
Last clip on Friday. Cooks Adam Sosnick. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I guess since we didn't play the first one, I'll just give a little bit of a descriptor. Adam Sosnick, after the PBD interview, Adam Sosnick was talking with Officer Talmud, which Brandon Tatum, and Dave Rubin, the serial child purchaser. And so he's having this it's like a 4-minute clip. And inside of this 4-minute clip, Adam Sosnick describes a story about how he had his bike stolen. And when his bike was stolen, this like random Mexican dude like helped him. He got in the van, they chased this black dude down. And when he got home and his dad was asking like, what's the problem? Adam Sosnick said, this took my bike. And then he says that his dad slapped him. Then he says that forever changed him and he never used the N-word again. And it's supposed to be like a lesson on that. One thing I'll say before we watch that clip, my thoughts on that was, that's kind of the point, right? Which is we don't want to live in a society where people think you can kill whatever gets named a Nazi and punch people for saying the N-word. I want to live in a society where we put people up for capital punishment who blaspheme Christ and we punch people who are pushing homosexuality. Right. It's like when I thought about that, I was like, that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's like we don't want to live under a Jewish society where those are the rule sets. We want to live in a Christian society that pushes and has those correct social reinforcements. But alas, this is Nick Fuentes kind of responding to Adam Sosnick in this moment and his father here.
And sent $20. Did you see Adam Sosnick crying about getting slapped up by his dad for saying the N-word? Boy, Amy bike was stolen. Great show as always. God bless.
Well, look, I don't blame him. I mean, if his dad tolerated that kind of respect for his wife's boyfriend, what kind of dad would he be? You know what I mean? So I kind of understand it. I get it. You know, if Adam's dad tolerated that type of disrespect, the mother of his son and the mother's boyfriend, I mean, you could just never tolerate that. So, I mean, a Jewish household works differently like that. See, in a Jewish household, you have to understand something. In a Jewish household, the wife wears the pants and the dad is a neutered bitch. So it makes sense that the dad is like a crying SJW. The dad is like, nobody says the N-word in this house. We respect black people. And it makes sense because that's how Jewish households work. Do you know that in Judaism, it is a sin for the husband to not sexually pleasure the wife? I am not making this up. I am not joking. In Judaism, it is a sin for the husband to not give sexual pleasure to the wife. Unlike in Catholicism, the wife has a duty to please the husband. It's called your marital duties, your conjugal duties. The wife has to have sex with the husband, has to give it freely whenever the husband wants. In Judaism, it is the opposite. Google it. I'm not making this up. In Judaism, the husband has a positive obligation. You must eat box. You have to eat her box. You have to munch. And you wonder why Jews are the way that they are. That's why they're all fucked up. That's why all Jewish men are pussies. Because they get married and they're sort of like sexual concubines of their wife. That's why the wives are always bossy and mean. That's why the wives are always controlling. That's why the little boys become sort of neutered in a way. That's real. So the dad is out there eating box, slapping his kid for saying nigger. You wonder why this guy is pushing 60 and he's got no wife, no kids. He's wearing gym shoes in the club at 60 years old. He thinks he's a pimp. You're just an ugly Jew, bro. Hate to break it to you. You're not cool. You're not handsome. You're not a baller. You're a fucking scam artist. You're the oldest guy in the club. Everybody is laughing at you. They say, who's this ugly old Jew in gym shoes in the club? Thinks he's some kind of baller. Try not to break a hip, old man. Bro's in there in the club. Dude, just worry about like a knee replacement or something. He goes, I'm going to have kids one day. Bro, you're 50. He goes, I was watching the podcast with Tate. He goes, I still like to have kids one day. You're 50. You're 50 bragging about being in the club. Your kids are going to be going off to college. You're going to be in a retiring home. You're going to be in some kind of nursing home. So anyway, I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry. He's a pathetic. If your life is that, I feel sorry for you. I pray for him. I hope he comes to Christ. I hope that he drops this act where he pretends to be some kind of cool guy. You're not cool. You're old. You're going to die soon. It will be very tragic. Your legacy will be scamming people out of their life insurance policies and being the oldest guy in the club. I feel sorry for him. I would love to take him to a Catholic Mass. Come to Catholic Mass, kneel before the Lord Jesus, start having a real life. Let go of all this degeneracy and get real. It's time for you to grow up, buddy. You know. Anyway, so I feel sorry for him. It seems like he had probably a bad role model for a father. That's why he is the way he is. And it makes sense. I mean, Judaism doesn't help either.
Gregson.
Let's see.
We don't play that in Miami, Atlas.
It was so gay. It's the gayest. He said it like 5 times too, and it's so gay. It's gay because, like I had said earlier, Nick had said in private when he was on the PBD, he was talking about like, yeah, the race, you know, there is a racial problems. Yeah, we do need to repeal the 19th, and then he's behaving like you know, like the cucked bitch that he is, like, you know, whining and whinging. It's just it is a major grift. And also too on the kids note as well, like how selfish of you to treat it as like a decision, like you're thinking about your legacy like that late. It's like, F you, dude. Like you're putting yourself in a position that like when your children get married, they won't have a father to walk them down the aisle. Like maybe think about this shit, like not as like an accessory to your life, but like actually as it matters, like as God intended. But again, like we're listening to a guy who doesn't believe in that. So it's like, of course, like we should know this already. So we constantly treat it as these things as if like, you know, we all have the same values. It's like, we clearly don't.
Yeah, these people, and a part of it is his generation too. It's not even simply a Jewish thing. It's these like Gen Xers and millennial, maybe not less so millennials, but a little bit. Yeah, they're all just like children. They turn 22 and literally haven't changed one bit, except that their bodies are old. They act like kids. They don't care. They treat their children like a burden.
And you know, there is something to be said about just the general nature of like just men and the archetypes of like PBD and that whole culture, right? That's kind of like the baby red pill, if you will. Like PBD, you know, the valuetainment type energy, like what Nick was describing, like the sneakers and the suits. That's like the step before you go like the whole what's the word? You know, Andrew Tate level. It's like that's like the first step. But like I said earlier, like it doesn't mean anything to me at all. I because I don't believe in what he believes in. So it's no different than like if we were watching a video of like an Indian screaming about how like the Brahmin necklace, you didn't like touch it the right way. We'd all be sitting here like, what does this mean to anybody? Like, you don't belong here. Like, I get you believe in that, but I don't. So like, what's the point? But people for some reason aren't coming to the table with that. They're coming to the table going like what Tate did. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Completely right. Yes, sir. Totally shouldn't have done it. I should have handled myself completely. But it's like getting dog walked by Adam Sosnick is like, there really isn't much lower that you can go beyond getting dog walked by like Ben Shapiro or somebody like that. But I think Ben Shapiro only has 2 leashes and he only has enough room for Michael Mills and Matt Walsh.
Nice. Let's go, dude.
Yeah. I guess we are at the end. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I thought it was a solid week. Nick, you know, we didn't even get into the basically Jewish acquisition of TikTok, and now they've appointed a new CEO and shocker, he's a Uber Jew. So is what it is. And the Armada is on its way to Iran. No president of no new wars, about to have just a big string of battles back to back, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess the point stands. We are here because we are pushing the message, Lord forgive me, of America first. We want God installed back into this nation. We are Christian nationalists. We believe in Christian values. We believe Christ is King, Christ is Lord. We want to be able to determine our own futures and abilities and posterity of America, of and in only of ourselves, not from foreign influences. We are race realists. That's the line I think needs to be getting pushed a lot too. And we're anti-feminist, obviously, but very specifically, we refuse people continually taking out the racial element. Stop denying reality. And that's where we are. Stop lying. Stop telling your eyes that they're lying to you. Stop telling all of your senses that they're lying to you. There are obvious and distinctual differences between obviously all the races, but also men and women. And we need to treat them differently in a legal setting and also a social setting. Anything different is just pushing more delusion.
Patterns exist.
Yeah, patterns exist. And there is an objective reality. We're living in one. But with that, man, Christ is King, Christ is Lord. Seek first the kingdom of God. As always, I am rooting for you guys, and that can't be understated. This is not a grift. This is not a push. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I mean that wholeheartedly. And so I say that as a reminder to you guys to make sure that you are maintaining a strong connection to your faith, despite how hard it is, with how much subversion there is, how many female pastors there are, how many omissions of let's move on from Timothy. I think Paul was too mean. All of that. Despite all of that, you must follow the narrow path. And beyond that, deport Cash Patel, deport Pam Bondi, and any woman that is over 100 pounds, chain her, deport her too. Send them out. Get rid of them. And anything else,
Amen.
Josh?
Great show. Happy once again to just be a part of the Groyper Report. And like Atlas said, we love you guys. We are rooting. We're rooting for you all. Let's just be honest. And I think, despite what happens to us, despite what happens in the next few hundred years, Christ wins in the end.
Amen. All right. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say we're
Rumble. I don't know the day-to-day stuff. I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death. Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, you know? So, yeah, I just go with what Nick says. I just defer all my political opinions to Nick Fuentes at this point. I'm America First. I wish that we had white Christian men running the country. It's unbelievable to me that we have a government that has a policy other than America First. How does that make any sense? We pay taxes, like, use our taxes to benefit the country that we live in.